Okay. Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome Canon Montjean to the Newman Society. Canon Montjean is the Provincial of the Institute of Christ the King, Sovereign Priest, a society of apostolic life in full communion with the Holy See, which has the charism of honouring God through the use of the traditional liturgy. Canon Montjean was born in France and studied engineering for 1 year before moving to Florence to discern his vocation. After 6 years of study, he was ordained a priest in 2002. Since being ordained, he has been the head teacher of a primary school and a chaplain in the Diocese of Versailles. Close enough. In 2022, Great Britain was declared a province of the Institute, and Canon Montjean became provincial. So please join me in welcoming Canon Montjean to the Newman Society.
Thank you very much. Should I start right now? Thank you very much indeed for this wonderful presentation. Now you know exactly, you don't know my age, but you know the age of my ordination. That's 23 years since I was ordained a priest, and to my great joy, to be honest. So, as you can probably note, have you probably noticed, I'm French, right? So you have to cope with my accent. I'm sorry, and my French mindset to approach this question of the Institute of Christ the King, but also I have to say I've been appointed after I was a chaplain in Versailles. I was appointed to New Brighton, not the old Brighton, the other one, just south Liverpool, which is probably the best part of the world. So sometime you probably also notice a little sort of a bit of a twang, you know, like your eyes, yeah, that sort of thing. So excuse my Scouse accent as well. I've tried to learn so many different languages in one life. I can do only so, but I found the most edifying people when we started the mission there in New Brighton. It was the first mission of the Institute of Christ the King in the country in 2011, then 2012. Now we've got missions around the country in the south, north, and also in the very center in Shrewsbury. But you can't miss the institute there. We've got a very tall priest, and so. And I'm really pleased to speak to you because I'm still working at university, but not in this one, of course. I wouldn't dare. It's too high level for me. But by the grace of God, I'm still supervised on PhDs in Strasbourg University because I completed a doctorate in marriage, in theology of marriage 3 years ago now, and I'm completing my PhD in canon law this year as well, in eschatology and canon law. So I'm sort of happy to speak to a different set of people, and there are teachers here, so I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know. So thank you, and forgive me for my very poor level in English. Also, by the grace of God, I'm able to travel a lot, as Kyle knows, because Kyle has been in my parish for a long time. So I'm also covering our mission in Stockholm, so 4 times a year. So Swedish is part of the learning process. And because of my family roots, we have opened also a mission with the Latin Mass in 2016 from England to one of the former colony of the British Empire in Mauritius, because my mother is from Mauritius. So everybody knows where Mauritius would be. Mauritius is between Australia and Madagascar. You've got the middle of nowhere. You've got an island there called Mauritius. It sounds like a paradise. It is, yeah. It's very nice. So when I go there 3-4 times a year, everybody says, "You're going on holiday again, Canon." I said, "No, I'm not going on holiday. I'm going to work." The mission is excellence. If anyone fancies going to a little paradise island. I have a job for you there. So don't worry, just sign up. The form would be ready at the back. Okay. Talking of the Institute of Christ the King in particular, as we know, this is a growing religious order. So divided in four parts. We've got the Society of Lay Members of the Institute, called the Society of the Sacred Heart, for the sanctification of the congregations, and so people. It's a kind of a third order with a lighter rules. The second part, of course, is the seminarians who are in formation to the priesthood. So they usually spend 7 years or 8 years. I think it's going to go up to 9 now. We're going to reach the Jesuits level of 10 or 11 years. So they are made formed and trained in Florence, in Italy. And so there are about 120 in formation at the moment from all over the world. Not mainly French, thank God. So we've got a minimal number of French seminarians so that they can still look after the food and provide the wine and make sure the cheese is melting enough, if you know what I mean, and smelling, yeah. The third group is the group of the sisters of the nuns, the sisters adorers of the Institute, founded in 2001. So it's worldwide. It's growing very rapidly as well. The novitiate is in Naples, and the fourth group is the group of priests called canons. So somebody asked me why we are called canons. I don't know who asked this during the meeting. Oh, it was you. Yes. Thank you for the question. So canons mean a rule in Latin. Well, actually, it's not a Latin word, it's a Greek word. Canon means rule. So you've probably heard that when we celebrate the Mass, we celebrate the canon of the Mass, the Eucharistic prayer. It's called the canon. So canon is one N, because the canon with double N is more aggressive. Okay. And the canons with two N's, when they are together, they form a battery of canons. But when we are in a group as priests of a group of canons with one N, we are not a battery. We are very peaceful. Don't worry about that. We are extremely friendly. So canon means we live the same rule. So in my religious order, I joined the Institute because I decided to live under the rule, a fixed rule, with a very strong community life and very strong common liturgy. So this is why we have a sort of the rules are quite clear to us, and we in the Institute we have following our patron saint. I have to say one word about the patron saints of the Institute, because every religious order in the church has got a patron, a protector. So the main patron saint is the Immaculate Conception of Our Lady. That's why we have some blue colors on the choir habit. And you know the altar boys, they love the blue pom-pom we've got on top of it. They just got that, canon, and they play with that. And you can see that, the flying biretta in the things. It's very good. I've been one of them anyway. It was worse. And Saint Benedict is the number one. Saint Benedict is the patron of the liturgy, as we know, and hospitality and culture. So in the Institute, you would probably find hospitality, culture, and friendship. That's the basics. And we have a very, also, Saint Benedict influences the way we celebrate the liturgy. So I'm referring here to the title of the proposed title of this little talk is Lex Credendi, Lex Orandi. So Saint Benedict is all about the Lex Orandi. So everything in his teaching is liturgical. So if you go to a monastery, a Benedictine abbey, you will find liturgy everywhere. So in the behavior, in the chapel, in the church abbey, but also you would find a liturgy around the table. So at the refectory. So everything is liturgical in Saint Benedict, because he says, quote, that we live We live in the presence of angels, in the constant presence of angels. This is why everything has to be a kind of a liturgy for us, even the meal. So that's Saint Benedict, and at the center we've got Saint Thomas Aquinas. So I'm not going to explain why Saint Thomas is so important, because at Oxford you can speak about Saint Thomas Aquinas. You've got the experts are over there, just down the road, so speak to them. So of course is here to direct our studies for the intellectual formation of our seminarians and for our own intellectual formation. And we, as teachers at the seminary, we would follow St. Thomas anyway. The third one, of course, is St. Francis de Sales. Oh, this is a bit more mysterious to all of you. I bet everybody knows St. Francis de Sales. Well, roughly, he was the bishop across 16th, 17th century or 17th century. He was I would say, he wasn't a French bishop, he was a French-speaking bishop in Savoia, in the Piedmont, and across France and Italy, and a most Protestant area, of course, at that time. So he was sent as a missionary priest. Then he became the Bishop of Geneva, and he's very interesting because he was never allowed to come to Geneva. He was the Bishop of Geneva, but Geneva was fully taken over by John Calvin. So he wasn't allowed to come into his own episcopal town during his life. He did once on a horse. He went through the town, but that was it, because he wasn't allowed. So it must have been a sort of a heartbreaking thing. So he's a good patron he's a doctor of the church, but he's good patron because he gives us the spirit of joy. He's always joyful. Second, he's very good at spiritual direction. He's an expert in spiritual guidance. And the third thing, he is a good missionary. So he helps us understand how a missionary must be joyful. So so he did, and this is the whole life of Francis de Sales. So, and he's related to Newman, because you know the motto of Newman, yes, everywhere, cor loquitur et cor. So this motto is from an exact reference to St. Francis de Sales. It comes from the treatise of the love of God from him. So I just probably you just learned that little sentence, but it's beautiful. And because he was so intensely moved by the Canticle of Canticles in his formation at the university. So this is the institute in general. So we try to live these virtues of the three patron saints in our own life, and in particular so this is the main reason why we joined the institute, is for the spirituality and the formation and the mission. This is why we come. And as one of the instruments of the mission, beyond all of that, or under all of that, as a structure, we've got the celebration of the Mass as a structure. But we do join the Institute for this spiritual life first of all, because this is the food. So the Mass, as celebrated in the Institute, as mentioned again in the title, is the extraordinary form of the Mass, which this terminology is no longer in use. So we use that another one, but anyway, we'll keep the Latin Mass as a simple way to do it. So the Latin Mass, which is not probably exactly proper, to be honest, because there are other liturgies celebrated in Latin, not just the form we use in my institute. But anyway, let's do that. Go together. Nobody's going to tell anyone. I'm using the last word. Okay. So the question of, in your title, you mentioned the question of lex orandi, lex credendi. This is a sort of a motto which comes from the 5th century. It means the law is the law we follow in faith, structure the law of prayer. So the law of faith is the structure of the law of prayer. Does that make sense to everyone? So the way you believe has an impact on the way you pray. And you can read it in the other way around is true as well. So lex credendi, lex orandi, and the other way around is lex orandi, lex credendi. It means the way you pray has an impact on your faith. So your prayers is the rule of your faith. So these four words means that there is a link between our faith and the expression of the faith. The liturgy must be coincide. Is that a good word? Yeah. Sometimes I make them up. See how it goes. So they must coincide because we cannot separate the faith and the liturgy, because the risk is that the liturgy would be an empty shell. There is no provision of faith, that is to say, of relationship and friendship with God. That's the risk of celebrating a liturgy as a pure formal performance of rites and gestures and postures. But if there is no goal of loving God, this is an empty shell and it won't last for long. And this is a big risk sometimes. So we are more concentrated on the exterior and less on the interior, because the goal is union with Christ. On the other way around, if we completely diminish or undermine the role of these gestures, if we don't understand that, if we think the liturgy is only a question of my relationship with God, which is core, but if I put away, sorry, I just switch it off. This technology is sad, isn't it? So the interior life must be expressed by the exterior. So there is always a relationship between the both of them in the liturgy. So what we see, because we are the religion of the incarnation. We are the religion of the incarnation. So the Most High has to assume our own, so Christ, so the second person of the Blessed Trinity, assumed our human nature in full, except one thing, as we know. So he was a true man. We all know that, yeah? Penny Catechism, first questions, go back to Penny Catechism. God is a true man, true God and true man. Okay, the only thing is that Jesus Christ is a true man except for one thing. He has got body, blood, human soul, so human intelligence, human will, human conscience, passions no, but pro-passion, anyway, I don't go this way. The only thing which he didn't have as a human was his person. His person was still the only one divine person. So in the incarnation, the religion, the Catholic Church is the church of the incarnation. And not as an empty shell, but animated from within the presence, the real presence of Jesus Christ. So this is most important. So the liturgy must be centered on Christ, first of all. And then the community can gather around Christ. But all the rites, all the gestures, and all the postures, must express this Christ-centered approach on prayer. So with time, the Church has sort of set some, what we call the rites. Everybody's familiar to this word? So the rites are all gestures, postures, words, etc., etc. So which are all the visible part of the liturgy has been set, not randomly, and not primarily, and not firstly and primarily, not because of the need of the congregation, but because of the right of Christ to be revered and worshipped. That's the core. When we understand that, we can understand all the liturgy. We've got the structure. So the liturgy and the Mass in particular is all structured and built around the reverence of Jesus Christ. And I keep repeating this. Christ has a right to be revered. So when we go to Mass or to any liturgy, we need to think of Christ first. I'm not going to feed myself first. You will eventually, don't worry about that. Okay, yeah, if you don't feed your faith when you go to Mass, it's an issue, isn't it? But essentially, the first step in chronology, I'd say, is I here to meet or to answer the right of Christ to be worshipped, to be adored. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. So that's the first reason why we go to Mass. And this is why the Mass is constructed, if I may say, with time. And when with time, sometimes the Church has to decide to leave or drop a few gestures and postures because they were not necessary. And they would obscure the core of the message, that is to say, Christ is here. Christ is present. So, because Christ is inside the liturgy, all the visible elements of the liturgy are gathered and united, like the soul unites the different parts of the body. And so they need to express or translate the main aspects of Christ's life. That is to say, first, his divinity. So when we go to Mass, we need to change world. We are going from the outside world, which is something, then we are going to come into the divine world. And this is probably where the liturgy expressed for the first time this faith. So we need to immerse ourselves in a divine atmosphere, and the liturgy has to create that atmosphere, which is also called sacred. Okay, so and this is where we go to Mass first. Well, I mean, you and me, we go to Mass because we want to be in the presence of the sacred first of all. So we cannot create it artificially. We have to create. It comes from within. So this liturgy has to show the divine, or to unveil the divine. And traditionally, the Church unveil the divine, unveil the sacred by veiling the world, the worldly element of our life. For instance, during the Mass, here I'm referring to the Latin Mass, which I know probably better than you do, and no offense there, okay? Well, by the way, I wasn't brought up with the Latin Mass. I found out the Latin Mass later when I was just a teenager. You know, it was very simple. It's just because two of my best friends used to play with them in the park or something, and they said, "Oh, we're going to join the Scouts." Did you say that? The group of Scouts? And I said, "What is this?" "Oh, we camp outside. Our parents are not here." I said, "Oh, parents are not here. That sounds an idea. Let's go." And there, the day after, we slept in the tent. The day after, the priest started in Nomine Patris et Filii in Latin, and I said, "Okay, what is this now?" What is that? So they said, "Oh, by the way, we forgot to mention you. This is the Mass." "Okay, all right, let's do it." And then you just notice I'm here now. Anyway, so this the liturgy has to set a different world. That's the number one. So if the liturgy doesn't create this separation between the outside world and the Word of God, we are missing something. And here I refer to the words of Pope Benedict XVI, who delivered a talk when he visited Paris, and he said, our liturgies are the pale reflection or the pale light of the celestial, sorry, excuse my French, but I'm not swearing. Our liturgy must be a pale reflection of the celestial adoration. So that's a heavy reference, isn't it? That's a heavy statement. Because when you think about it, you say, okay, so it means that everything we do at Mass, or we celebrate at Mass, or we perform, has to be referred to the liturgy of heaven. Is that possible? No. But not because it's a pale reflection. So Pope Benedict says, well, whatever you're going to do is going to be really far too small. But do your best. So the liturgy has got a tension, which is a nice tension. It's a tension towards heaven all the time. And this is why it's a bit demanding. So when the liturgy doesn't challenge us a little bit, it's probably because it's not high enough. It needs to be as close as possible and not just a pale reflection, but a better reflection. Okay? So because we cannot unfold and reveal all the liturgy of angels and the presence of God face to face, the liturgy covers the mystery of God, and this is why we use so many veils in our Latin Mass liturgies. You probably noticed that. The chalice is veiled, the priest is long. Yeah, that's the point. That's the point, because you say, well, this thing is, to be very honest, you wear that every day. My goodness me, it's the most unpractical thing. I can tell you, it gets stained. I've got holes and things. When I go cycling, it goes in the chain, and it's the most. And may I do a little digression? Is that right? My mother, she's absolutely mad with me, because she said, "What have you done to your cassock again?" I said, "Well, you know, I've been there and there. I'm doing everything. I'm wearing it every day." And I said, and she said, "But the church should have decided to go for a more practical cloak for yourselves." No, Mum, because it's the veiling side of it. Because the more you veil the human side, the more you unveil the mystery. So you don't reveal the mystery in the Mass, but you, by hiding certain things, by keeping certain things, we would say mysterious, you put yourself directly, without even thinking of it, you put yourself directly in contact with the mystery, directly. So if it's a mystery, if the liturgy is a mystery, if you won't understand everything, well done. This is probably a good sign, because it means that the church managed to veil so that to unveil another world. Does that make sense to everyone? So the liturgy speaks to everybody, even the mini ones, like this. I can tell you, when I was a head teacher, so it was a nightmare. I can tell you. No, not because of the children. It's because I was ordained very young. As soon as I was ordained, 2 months after my ordination, I was appointed as a parish priest and head teacher in a primary school with the 3 years old to the 10 years old. And I said, "Oh my goodness me, how am I going to do all of that? Okay, please God help me. I don't know. Okay, no, the first thing you need to start learning is hearing confessions, because you have no training for that. I mean, you don't take a mock exam. Okay, you come to confession, but I won't give you absolution, but just see how it sounds. All right, so is that what it is? Okay, all right, okay. Well, it's not more different than mine. No, it's fine. So you can't do that. So the first worrying thing is just starting hearing confessions. Oh, all right, okay. It wasn't too bad, actually. Okay. And then I said to myself, I'm going to celebrate the Latin Mass for the children. They come from everywhere, from the town. What should I do? And I said to myself, okay, let's do this. Keep it simple. The 3 years old and the 10 years old, none of them speak Latin. That's for sure. So that's the first statement. So, okay. Am I going to teach them? No, you're not to, because they can't even read or write. So forget it. So I said, okay, let's tell them that Jesus is present, really present for them. And let's tell them that if they can't see it, if you can't see him, this is absolutely normal. And there are certain gestures and postures. They don't need to understand the language, but they need to understand the signs and the symbol underneath. And I used to give every week during Mass, I would say, okay, now we're going to say the Mass. So now pay attention to one little thing. For instance, something which veils the sanctuary in the best way possible is the incense. You probably noticed that, haven't you? Yeah. So the thurifer has to be spot on. I always tell him, just put as many charcoals red, so I can put more incenses and just put a big smoking cloud. But this is good, because actually the cloud, and the little ones, they can perceive that. They say, because I always say, the cloud is the cloud of God. So he envelopes you, you are veiled with the cloud. So smell it, see it, feel it, and then you will pray to Jesus. And immediately they would say, I was talking to Jesus Christ when I saw and smelled and felt sort of wrapped up by the cloud. So we need to make sure that everybody at every level can grasp a divine message at his own level. Okay? That was something we tried to work. So the mystery is veiled at all time. It's not a mystery for God because he knows, but it's mystery because of our limitations, right? The second aspect of the liturgy is the notion of grandeur and intimacy. So we have to combine both, which is not very easy. We need to send the message that there is somebody who is infinitely, who is infinite and infinitely perfect here, and also is going to come in you. And this is the challenge of the liturgy, and I hope we do that in the Latin Mass. So we try to project that message, which is God is immensely good to you, but also is more intimate to yourself than you are. And here there is no tension, but there is only a sort of, I would say, a constant care for that, to deliver that message. For two reasons. The first reason is because we need to tell everybody that you are in presence of the sacred, of the God infinite, and you are worthy to be in his presence. So the liturgy has to present that, like the liturgy on the Sinai, Moses on the Sinai. Does that make sense? Surrounded with clouds. So here you could see the power, the mightiness of God, but also the intimate relationship, because he would speak to God. So this is why in liturgy we should never minimize the infinite presence of God. It can't be just a conversation between us. It has to be a conversation with someone who is, although he is infinite, we are worth to be in conversation with him. And this is so, and this is where the liturgy sends the right message that God created us to be intimate and to be our best friend. Although infinite, he's going to come in you. So both aspects should be seen in the liturgy. So there is a kind of a holy fear, I would say, not terror, but just a little fear. In the meantime, it's a kind of a desire to speak to him. How do we create this context of intimate relationship with God? The first thing is concentrate on silence. So the silence gives everyone a space of conversation. If we are constantly asked to interact between ourselves or in the congregation, or to do something in the liturgy, we are far too busy. And so the liturgy should be more silenced than ever, so that we don't need to, we don't want to read all the prayers, we don't need to, but the silence would help us to have this conversation with God. This is why most of the Mass in Latin is silent. The fourth aspect is the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. So we come to be in front of Jesus Christ at the Calvary. I know it doesn't sound very pleasant, but this is how it is. But don't worry, he doesn't suffer. So when we are at Mass, we are in the presence of the real Christ who had suffered at Calvary, who is now offering his sacrifice, without pain in front of us. So we are drawn to the Calvary because Christ is present with his glorious body. So this is why we are all in front of Jesus Christ. So we're facing him. He's not just here amongst us. He is in a certain way, but we are facing him as well as the priest. And this leads us to the orientation of the Mass. So we usually pray towards east, that is the back of the church, so the rising sun, where Christ will come back. So this is the orientation of the liturgy. It does make sense because we pray, we face our blessed Lord. Then we the liturgy would feed our faith because of the presence of the Holy Eucharist. And this is the conclusion. The Holy Eucharist. We need to, I think we are far too used to having the Blessed Sacrament as sort of disposal, if I may say. It's not a very nice expression. Sorry about that. But we feel sometimes accustomed to the real presence of Christ, but we should never be. It should be like, as we say in the, sometimes we write this in our sacristies, at above the press where the vestments of the priest are prepared. Sometimes you've got this little sentence in Latin. You probably read that. Well, you don't go to sacristies anyway, but you can try. So it says, ut prima, ut unica, ut ultima. That is to say, as the first one, as the unique one as the last one. What does that mean? It means that when you are going to say the Mass, and we can extend that to our Mass attendance, when we attend Mass, we can repeat that little phrase, I'm going to Mass and I'm going to receive our Blessed Lord as if I would receive him for the first time, as if it was the only and unique moment of my life I would receive him in communion, as if it would be the last communion of my life, ut ultima. Okay, so this sentence, which you could probably keep in mind if you don't mind, if you like, it's an expression of the faith, a direct expression of the faith, because all the Mass is centered on our Blessed Lord. And I'm always puzzled when I visit a church or a big building or a cathedral, and often I say to myself, well, all these beautiful buildings we try to maintain in good condition and so forth, all these splendid artworks and everything, why did we build them? What did they build? What's the only reason why they built all these wonders across the world? Why? So, for the architectural point of view, not to fit as many people as possible. Yes, but no, not really. To use certain techniques of lights and music, etc. No. The only reason why these beauties have been built is for a little piece of bread. Just that. Little hosts. So it's not bread, of course. Don't get it wrong. It's the host. So if we think that all the liturgy is centered on that, so our buildings are made for him, in the host, for the real presence of Christ. Therefore, the liturgy is structured and all centered on this little piece of bread. So it has to be as beautiful as possible. And interestingly, we accept that a cathedral must be, or a church must be as beautiful as possible. I mean, this is what it should be, isn't it? So we understand and we accept that. Then when it comes to the liturgy, we say, oh, no. Oh, no. We shouldn't have so much care for the liturgy, it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be that complex. Well, I mean, a cathedral is a complex building, isn't it? Anyway. But we understand that, but we don't understand sometimes, we do not understand why the liturgy has to be, we need to put so much care for the liturgy. It's only because of this little piece of bread. Just that. For the tabernacle and Jesus inside. This is it. And sometimes when we visit these buildings where there is no real presence, no Catholic Mass, he said, what is building about now? What is that? So if it's just a gathering of people who are singing together, sometimes they're clapping, I don't know, not in my church. But if it's just a place of gathering, why do we need to have such a beautiful building? There's no reason. If you want to see a beautiful artwork or artifacts, just go to a museum. It'll be all right. And then you can gather in another place as a functional gathering. But we are not the community of Catholic in a church. We are not here because our building, and our liturgy is not here to be functional. It's an expression of the divinity by itself. So, and we're here because of him. We're gathered for a person, not just for our own benefits. Okay, so that's the core. So all the liturgy is centered. And when probably some of you have experienced a Latin Mass in your lives, probably, I don't know. But if you do so one day, you would probably see how much care we put into many details around the body of Christ. So the position of hands, the purifications, the care, and sort of and every of this gesture, to me, I try to perform that as an act of love of Christ, as tender as possible, as meekness, because it's Him. It's just a piece of bread. It is Him, really, and He's decided to come in there for me and for us. So, and you can believe that as a priest, our identification, we need to feed our identity to Christ. So, and this is why I've chosen the Institute, is to feed my identity as the first lover of Jesus Christ at Mass, because I hold Him in my hands. So I need to love Him more, that's for sure. That's it. I've no other conclusion than this one.